Hi guys, it's Real Talk with Tracy, and in the background, Haley. I don't know what she's playing with her toy. We're getting a new dog soon. Oh my God, I can't wait. A couple more days. I'll tell you about it when he gets here and share that with you. But I want to thank you guys. I really took, I want to say, a risk by opening myself up and being transparent about things that have happened in my childhood. And not only that, I started my podcast first, which you can find. There's a lot of interesting things on there. It's the same name. Hi guys, Real Talk with Tracy. I think I'm in 80 countries now. I started that first because I didn't know if I really wanted to be like seen on video. I can't compete with all these people, and I don't want to compete with all these people that are on YouTube and look perfect and everything. I am in my 60s. I've earned every year. I feel privileged that I am still here. And I want to thank you guys for giving me such amazing feedback that my stories are helping you, that you're connecting with it, that you understand that you're not alone and you're not crazy, and that it's not your fault that you've been born into a family full of narcissists. I wanted to talk today, and I'll be honest with you, I talk straight off the top of my head, you guys. If I make a video and I play it back and I don't like it, I just delete it. But I want to say 90% of the time, I play it back and it's like, you know what? This is just all, I think, pretty good information. It's from my heart. It's from my soul. And I think that I just want to be real with other people. I want to leave this behind. I hope I get to live into my 80s, maybe even reach 90, but none of us know how long we have. And we've never had kids. And I feel like, what can I leave behind? What can I share with people that's going to help other people? And that's also going to be cathartic for me. And that is being able to share with you and tell my story. And I know that there's a lot of you like me who feel so outcasted. Maybe you're the black sheep of the family. It's amazing how when you tell the truth about what's going on, they turn on you, right? It's like, oh, you're too sensitive. Oh, So smoke and mirrors is kind of something I want to mention. If you're following my story, you know that I was raised by my aunt and uncle, actually from the time I was 18 months old, and it was kept a family secret till I was 12. So I thought they were my mom and dad. And in the early years, there was some really good times. I got to tell you, there was really good times. There was trips to Disneyland. Even though my dad was always kind of with the transistor radio in his pocket listening to sports, he was always kind of, I feel, tuned out. I never felt really that connection with him. And I remember when he would touch me, all I wanted to do was pull away. He would walk around with his hands kind of grabbing my shoulder, guiding me around. And I was very uncomfortable around him. Even as a kid. And this was from all the times that he would push me down, and then I would frown, and he would go, oh, look at her frowning. How funny. And he would push me down on the ground when I was a toddler, and he wouldn't let me get up. And he would stand over me and he would laugh at me. And I remember that memory is so burnt into my brain. And also him tickling me until I was screaming in agony, and him laughing, grabbing me in the groin or grabbing me under the arm. He just thought it was funny. But who was he? He was a 6th grade teacher. He was a 6th grade teacher. A lot of these people that are narcissists outside in public, they're perceived differently. I remember meeting a lot of his students when I got older. Some of them said, "Oh, wow, your dad's cool." Other people came up and said, "How do you survive? He can be so angry. It must be really hard to live with him." I had a couple people say that. And so his controlling ways, I'm sure, poked through when he was teaching. And I was thinking about all the fibs, the made up smoke and mirrors that my aunt used to tell. So I was always doing as a kid swap meets and these Indian shows with my parents where we would go and sell Indian jewelry, like Navajo jewelry, Hopy jewelry. We would go and do different trade shows. I was selling all sorts of things from the time I was like 7, 8 years old. We did the Rose Bowl swap meet once a month. We did the Saga swap meet. Sorry, my allergies are bothering me. Anyway, we did all these swap meets. And I remember that when we would do the Indian shows, I would listen to my mom, aka my aunt, and she was darker skinned. She had very olive skin and like, I want to say almost black eyes and dark hair. And when you looked at her, if someone told you she was an Indian, you would probably believe it, but she wasn't. She was just a Jewish lady, okay? So anyway, we would be doing all these shows and people would come to the booth and she would talk about how we were Hopy Indians and she grew up on Second Mesa in Arizona. She had spun all of these lies about so many things that you guys, I didn't even know what was real. So when I was a kid and we moved to this area where there's this private lake, some of the neighborhood kids come over and coincidentally they're American Indians. They're Seneca Indians from Buffalo, New York. They come over and I think it's really cool. Like I'm meeting some new friends and they're like, "What are you?" And I said, "I'm a Hopy Indian." And they're like, "You are? Like, you don't really look like a Hopy Indian." "Yeah, I'm a Hopy Indian." So they run home and tell their mom, "Guess what? Out of all the people here at the lake, we met another American Indian family. They're Hopy Indians." It's crazy. And then she was actually very artistic. She was an interior decorator. She was self-taught, but she would talk about how she went to school all through Europe. She would make up these stories to puff herself up, to sell herself. And she would get jobs and make a lot of money. And she didn't really need to do that because she was actually naturally just very talented, even though she was kind of crazy. She was a very talented artist and she had met a neighbor that had a load of money and did quite a few of his homes. I mean, from the whole interior, going down to the big design center in LA and picking out the flooring and the furniture and I mean, everything. Just think of a house that just got built and there's zero in it. And she would just put all these things together and they were amazing. She didn't have to lie about all these things, but she did. And we had a lot of antiques in the house. And I remember her having friends over. We had this huge cabinet when you walked into the house and it had like all this blown glass and like really artsy stuff, right? Really cool stuff. And it was old. It was probably like from the 1920s. And she had refinished it, which means she had stripped it and then kind of sanded it a little bit and then put some stain on it and some glaze. I remember somebody walking in, or a group of people walking in, and they're like, "Oh, Gloria, that cabinet." And she's like, "Oh, I made that." And they're like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah, I made that. I got oak wood and I've been carving that. And it took me like, I don't know, 9 months." She would just like spin it, you guys. She would spin it and she would make up all these stories, and people that didn't know what was going on in the house with her abuse, how abusive she was to me, they thought she was amazing because she was so charming, like scary. You know, she was charming. And I remember this one artist coming over and she told him she was going to open up an art gallery, which she did at one point. And she was telling him that she was going to get him like a showing with all these high-end people in Beverly Hills and all this stuff. And I took him aside and I'm like, you know, she's not telling you the truth. And he's like, "What? That's your mother." I go, "Listen, I want you to know this is going to go nowhere for you. Do not listen to what she's saying. She is lying to you." And he went back and told her. So there was a lot of bad things going on. I was threatened by her after my dad, aka Uncle, left. I really held a lot of, I guess I still hold some anger towards him that he left me with a delusional, manic, bipolar, untreated, narcissistic drunk. He left a 12-year-old child that was helpless with a woman who was out of her mind, with a woman who she used to be sanding different things and she would be working on a project. And he tells everybody the story of how they got in an argument. This is before he left. And she swooped the sander in front of his face. And it was, you know, it's a big sander. It could have just taken off his face. And that's who he left me with. He did not take me. He left me behind. And if he's listening and you wonder why I've given you so many chances and now don't talk to you anymore, for so many reasons I don't talk to you. But how do I forgive a person, a father, even though you're my adopted father? How can I forgive someone for leaving me with somebody who's so crazy, who's out of her mind, who brings home men from nightclubs, strangers at 2:00 in the morning, and pulls me out of bed, and I'm in my nightgown and I'm 12 years old, and throws me over on the piano stool to entertain a bunch of men who I don't know, sitting there at 2 or 3 in the morning in my nightgown. So it's very hard. It's very hard to forgive. It's hard to forgive him on a lot of levels. And he had asked me about 5 years ago for forgiveness. And I said, "For what? There's so much. Can we make a list? I mean, what do you want me to forgive you for?" He's like, "Well, I kind of ignored you." I go, "Let's talk about all the things that you did." I mean, it would fill a book. So, did he adopt me? Yeah. And later, what does he say to me? "I adopted you. Well, nobody wanted you." And I remember when your biological dad had sex with your mother because they came over to the house and the back of his pants were dirty. You could tell that he probably just pulled down his pants and screwed her in the back of his car. These are the kind of things that a father tells a daughter. And then the dirty jokes, which I won't even go into, like I'm some freaking guy at a bar. And then all of his porn and his videotapes laying all over the apartment. Disgusting. And he was a 6th grade teacher. Admired by many. Feared by many. But admired by many. So, a lot of these things are smoke and mirrors. What you see on the outside isn't what's going on the inside. I've told you before about my aunt, who I love. She is not related to me. She is married to my biological uncle, who's the brother of my aunt and mother. And he's in his 90s and she's in her 80s, and he's very abusive. I've had to call the police. I've had to send them over there. And what does she do when the police goes over? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's my fault. Classic abused woman. He parks her car so she can't get out. He takes the keys away. He locks up everything. And he tells her that if she tries to leave, that she'll have nothing. They sit in this huge house that's beautiful and full of anger and sadness and hate. And he won't let her leave. He won't allow the sale of the house so they can split it in half and she could go her way and have peace of mind and he could go his way. And all of his friends think he's an amazing man. They think he's amazing. And nobody really knows what's going on in this house. And I'm talking to her on the phone yesterday. She sent me a card in the mail. It said, "I love you so much. I don't know how I ever lived without you in my life. You're such a light in my life." And it fills me up because she's my only auntie and she's not related to me by blood, but I love her so much. She's such a kind person and she's stuck in this house with a monster, just like I was stuck with his sister. But the difference is I picked up and left and I put myself in foster care to get away. She could easily get an attorney and go after him, but she's already in her 80s and she's afraid. And he's really conditioned her all these years and taken away all of her self-esteem. And it's really, really hard. And I'm on the phone with her the other day and all of a sudden she's screaming. Like she fell off a cliff, like she's screaming. And I'm like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I hear him in the background, "F you, you stupid bitch," all this. And then she's like, "You're an asshole." And I hear them arguing. And then I hear him get on the phone and he's like, "Tracy, you better not send the police." So I'm like, "Look, you guys are adults. You need to knock this off. Every day is a gift from God that you're on this earth. You guys are sitting in this multi-million-dollar, gigantic, gorgeous house that people would give their right leg to live in. And you two are miserable. This is sad. Grow up. Knock it off. This is wrong." He's like, "Well, you better not send the police again." So I got off the phone with her, called her back 5 minutes later. She's locked in her bedroom. And I'm like, "Listen, you have a phone. You can call 911. But I don't want him locked up in jail. It would be so hard for him there." I'm like, "Who cares? Send him away. Who cares? It's okay." "No, I would just feel so bad." So I'm not even related to her. I'm related to him. And I'm sending her stuff in the mail. I sent them both a book that's called Stop Arguing that I've asked them to both read. Luckily, the house is big enough so they can both go into their separate areas. But she can't even get her car out of the garage because he blocks her. I could only pray that he passes away before her so she can get out of prison and have a wonderful life. I've offered to go up. How many times? Her cousins don't know what's going on. I have begged her to talk to them. She won't. She's embarrassed. And she said, if you call the police again, I'm afraid he'll kill me. And I can't have that on my conscience, so I'm not going to do that again. She has a phone. I have given her numbers she could call. She's finally reached out to some lawyers. But even when the police came, oh, he's so charming. Hi, officer. Oh, no, we're fine. My wife just gets a little grumpy. So it's been all around me, you guys, like a pit of snakes. I could probably tell you stories for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. But I've already been talking. Oh, look, 21 minutes. So I just want you to know, if you're dealing with this, no, you're not crazy. And you're not going to get everybody to see your point. I have half siblings. When I cut myself off from my biological father, different father, my bio dad, my seed donor, this last time. And I had talked to a couple half sisters on the phone, and they're like, how can you be so mean to an 80-something-year-old man and tell him he has no heart? Oh, you're terrible. But years ago, when he was living by her, she would call me every day. He's awful. He's awful to my kids. I can't stand him. He doesn't know how to be a grandfather. They would get in arguments constantly. My biological father and his wife actually moved away from back east all the ways over to the west to get away from my half sister because all they did was argue. And I was there for her listening to this bullshit. Every 2-3 days, she'd call me, and it was all about what an asshole he was. And I would listen and listen and listen and listen and try to be supportive. Even when they weren't talking for like a year, I got them back together. Dummy me, right? I got them back together because I was trying to make some kind of a family and wanted everyone to be happy. So last time I talked to her, neither one of my sisters has truly cared for me. I've been another bowl of dog food. I want to say it like this. If you have 3 hungry dogs and only 2 bowls of dog food meaning my biological father's attention, the 3 dogs will fight over those 2 bowls of dog food. And they all want to be daddy's little girl. They all do. Both of them. And there's like a big distrust and dislike for each other, but they won't say it in front of each other. Oh, hi. How are you? But they would be so happy if the other one didn't exist. And I realize now they would be happy if I'm not around. So when the chips were down and I wanted them to agree with me and see how awful he was, all these things that he did that were so unkind and so uncaring, they're like, what are you talking about? They want to be in the will. I'm one less person. And like I've told them, if you think you're getting a cut of anything, you're getting what you get now, which is this. Look. See this? This is what you get now. Nothing. A man who does not even want to acknowledge a birthday with a card. Okay? Nothing. But they wait, the hungry dogs. Oh, looking at those 2 bowls of dog food. Yummy. No. So you know what? I don't care. I don't care if I'm in my good graces, because I've been so emotionally hurt that to stay in that relationship is like swimming in water and trying to breathe underwater. You can't. It suffocates you. And so, and I want to remind them, if you are watching, I don't ever use your name or where you live. So you can't be too pissed. This is my experience. I wish them both well. Both of my half siblings. I have loved both of them. And both of them also have hurt me. And they're both very narcissistic. But in person, when you meet them, so charming, incredibly charming, loving. I finally said to my youngest half sibling, I know you resent me. And she's like, why would you think that? I said, because you always talk about our other sibling in such a bad way. And I said, I know you're so hungry for our father's affection that you resent me. I had visited him with my husband out of state the same weekend that she coincidentally went up to visit him. And when I got there, she was so angry I was there because I was going to take time away from her. And it was so important for her to impress him, which is so sad. She went out and bought a used Mercedes and she drove it across state to another state to show him. Look, Dad, look what I did. Look at this. Look, I got a Mercedes. And he called me on the phone. You know what he says? Not as nice as mine. And I'm like, shit, is that what you said to her? Well, it's just not as nice as mine. It's just kind of lower end. Or she would send him Omaha steaks. And he would call her and say, don't waste your money on this shit. They were too fatty. I didn't like them. Everything she tried, everything she did, never good enough. And it hurts my heart for her because I met her when I was 21 and she was 8 years old, and I just loved her so much. And she doesn't want a relationship. When there were good things happening in my life, she didn't want to hear about them. She told me that she's had 2 failed marriages and that when he dies, she expects to get the house because I have a house. My other half sibling has a house, and she deserves to have it all. That we don't deserve anything because she's had 2 failed marriages. But she wasn't given away for adoption and thrown away the way I was. I'm not really mad. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that my siblings didn't grow a big heart and didn't have the same kind of empathy and couldn't have a caring, loving relationship with me. It still hurts. And I don't know if they'll ever listen to this, but I wish them well. I truly do. If they went out tomorrow and won a $20 million lottery, I would be so happy for them because they've had heartache like I have. When you have a father that walks out on you, it's so painful. And I've had 2. The biological one, then the adopted one, and then being friends again with the biological one, then having to go into the hospital thinking I'm having a heart attack and he doesn't show up for 7 hours. because he's going to meetup parties and eating pulled pork sandwiches, calling me on the phone. I have 2 IVs, 1 in each arm. He's telling me what he's eating. And he finally shows up and says, some people will do anything for attention. Both my fathers, just a total disappointment in my life. But if you've been following me, I got the greatest hubby ever, you guys. Oh my God. I don't know how I lucked out this way. God bless me. I've had a lot of pain, but I got a great husband. And I've had wonderful years of working 35 years full time. Really hard. And we started with nothing but $7 and a case of top ramen. We had nothing. Literally, I remember the apartment we got. We had a case of top ramen and $7 between us, and our rent in Northridge was $495 for a 1-bedroom apartment. And we had like cardboard boxes that we put food on, and we sat on the floor and we ate top ramen. Things will turn around for you. I share all this with you because I want the people that are listening to this to be stronger and to realize you're not crazy and you're not alone, and you deserve good friends. You deserve a good spouse or a good girlfriend or a good boyfriend. I have a wonderful brother who I just love, who I didn't meet until 5 years ago, and he's amazing. And he has nothing to do with our biological father because my biological father has no interest. He fought for our country. He's an entrepreneur. He is so successful. He is charming and witty and funny. He has an IQ probably off the charts. He has a beautiful wife. He has a wonderful family. And he's in my life now, and I'm really, 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 really lucky. So anyway, I'm going to go. This is one of the longest ones I've done. I'm getting ready for my new dog to come home from Texas. And once he's in my arms, I will feel comfortable telling you the whole story. So, sending you guys hugs and love from California, and always my biggest prayer every night, every day, every morning is peace on earth. Thank you for joining me. Please subscribe.